Thank you. Welcome to the planning board meeting. See, February 3rd, 2022. The first, we do have a quorum. We have 4 people here and 1 person online. So welcome everybody. First order of business is to go through the old business, which is a discussion and consideration of the commercial development review ordinance amendments addressing commercial solar and wind facilities and telecommunications towers. That's what we have in front of us now. Does everybody have the package? Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. So I guess I'll just open up the board. What's on your mind right now that you want to bring forward immediately to get out there?
Well, where we left off was with the discussion or the need to discuss and decide what is the small size facility we're going to regulate. Anthony's, had provided us in the packet the markup of what we did at the last meeting, and so we were left it at section 5 that had to do with both which facilities the ordinance would regulate and which ones it would not, which ones would be exempt.
And since that time, you came up with a talking point, maybe an example, right, that you sent around.
Yeah, and we can't really move forward without deciding that, because whatever other requirements we come up with are going to be related to and dependent upon what size facility we regulate, and whether we have like Reedfield and a few other towns, sort of multi-tiered, different size facilities and different regulations for each size category. So anyway, I think that's the primary agenda item for today.
And we have with the suggestion for a talking point from what you supplied to us was looking at something that would be a size of 5,000 square feet of impervious surface area or more would fit into the utility that we would regulate.
Right. So I don't know if everybody had a chance to look at that, but my thought process was this. I looked at what the other 10 towns that I had information on in that table, plus the 2 model ordinances, and they're all over the map. But basically we needed to decide, are we going to base which facilities we regulate on the basis of some size measurement, the area on the face of the earth, or are we going to do it on maximum electrical production capability, like KV-Cog originally suggested? The latter, and this was part of the discussion last time, as you will recall, has a disadvantage of discouraging the use of the most efficient technology. And so the one thing I can say about what other communities are doing is that most rely on some measure of how big is the facility on the face of the earth. And the good thing about that is that relates to, its surface runoff, stormwater runoff, phosphorus runoff, and water quality concerns, as well as what impact it might have on other natural resources like wildlife habitat and that kind of thing. Whereas how much electricity it produces does not. So that's the other thing to think about. And my recommendation in what's in the packet is that we rely on some kind of aerial measurement. And I was suggesting 5,000, a threshold of 5,000 square feet or larger of impervious surface, in part because we have to, whatever we come up with, we have to mesh into the existing ordinance. And it seemed to me it would be far easier to use terms already defined in the ordinance, like impervious surface, rather than you know, necessarily coming up with a whole new nomenclature.
Hmm.
And it also, in terms of ensuring that we don't come up with one set of standards, one trigger for solar farms, and only to find that there are these, later on, that there are these other triggers that apply to all non-residential uses that bring in solar farms regardless of their size, which is possible.
Mhm.
So, but the other thing that I think we need to consider, and this relates to the handout that Steve produced, and that Anthony provided us with copies with tonight, is whether or not to take sort of a multi-tier approach. So you have one or have two or maybe even three, as some towns do, different size facilities with prorated sets of regulation based on that size. That's what Reedfield does. They also have triggers based on output. But most of the towns I looked at rely on some measure of area on the face of the earth, ranging from rooftop solar panels, if they have zoning, to Naples, which is the largest I found, where it's over 2 acres of panel and what they call panel and interpanel area. One of the problems with all the other towns is none of them define very well, with maybe one or two exceptions, how to measure that area that they're talking about. It's really confusing, and if you just look at it at face value, it would really lead to a lot of, in my opinion, inconsistent decision making. But anyway, so that brings us to the proposal that's in the packet, and you know, all I did was I didn't try to change the verbiage or the terminology that KV Cog proposed of utility scale solar energy facility. I just tried to define it and defined it as 5,000 square feet of impervious surface area, and that would include solar panels and support structures. Their support structures, the transformers, the inverters, and other electrical structures, any other structures that might have to be developed, part of the development. Of course, driveways, roads, parking, and equipment storage areas, and then other impervious surfaces. And then I also provided basically the same list of suggested exemptions, because in some respects, what facilities we regulate is as much determined by what facilities we don't regulate. And given sort of the broad scope of this ordinance anyway, if we're not careful, we could capture some pretty small facilities that I don't think we really want to regulate. But anyway, I changed the list around a little bit to from what I handed out at the last meeting, and it's on the second page there. So it would include solar energy producing facilities with less impervious surface than a utility scale solar energy facility, and that obviously changed. But the others, like roof mounted solar energy producing facilities on, you know, legal residential and non-residential structures, solar producing equipment that is integrated into the building, like shingles or roofing, or if you've ever been down to, I can't remember if I used this, mentioned this, if you've ever been down in Freeport, across the street from L.L. Bean, there's a store with a canopy. The canopy is actually solar panels, that kind of thing. So it's integrated right into the construction of the building. And then lastly, something that is just for the exclusive use of a legally permitted non-residential use, and it's not sold, electricity is not sold to the grid. That's, you know, depending on where technology goes with and how fast with batteries and other technologies that may be more viable than it is now. But I did, so, you know, that was my suggestion. But I did just want to point out that Steve has a different one with a 2-tier regulatory scheme as well. So, you know, we have some decisions and choices to make on how you want to go.
So is this one Steve's?
Yes.
Rich,
I got a question, actually probably with George. 5,000 square feet. Well, the first question I have, if we exempt these, we have the ones that are exempt, they're pretty much completely exempt from the ordinance.
Yes,
Okay.
the way I'm suggesting it versus some town ordinances have exemptions, but they're conditional. Like you have to meet the National Electrical Code, or, you know, I don't know that, I mean, I personally, I have no interest in getting involved in regulating or enforcing the National Electrical Code on somebody's rooftop.
Yeah, no, the thing I was getting at or thinking of is if it's completely exempt, then those facilities, even though it's only 50 by 100 or whatever, I do like the idea of aerial measurement. I'm in favor of that. But the person that putting up this 50 by 100 thing could then, if it was an open field, pretty much just put the thing right next to the road. I was wondering if, you know, 5,000 square feet isn't very much, whether we could measure the panel area and exempt up to 250 square feet or 250 feet of road getting to it. So there'd be some incentive to, we'll put it this way, it wouldn't not force, but have the thing being right next to the road or wherever.
Right.
It just, I'm thinking 50 by 100, that's not much of a solar facility. And if you include the road and they want to get back 200 feet,
Yeah, no,
it's
that'll,
just not gonna
Yeah.
happen.
yeah, right.
It's just
Or
encouraging.
it
them
would
to
fall
build.
into the ordinance.
It kind of encourages people to build next to the road. So anyway, that was my thought of, could we exempt the road and the power line as long as it's in the right of way, if you will, of, not the right of way, but adjacent to the road, following the road. But anyway, that was just a thought I had.
it's a very, very good point. Good thought.
So what's, refresh my memory on what was the distance off the road for the comprehensive plan? Wasn't it like 500 feet or something?
Yeah, that's right. In terms of, so the limited residential commercial zone is 500 feet from a public road, goes back 500 feet from any public road. And I think that discussion of that we had earlier probably is best delayed or postponed until we've decided what facilities we're regulating. But you know, if the two are connected at the hip, what size facility we regulate depends on, you know, where they're going to be located. So that you're right, that would be 500 feet. The other thing that Steve suggested and was discussed at least at one meeting was a 250-foot setback from public roads.
So we're just gonna, in this instance, we're just gonna ignore the comprehensive plan where we take it, where we want to use it against something, we use it, but now we're gonna just ignore it. I'm not getting this comprehensive plan stuff.
Well, that was all my idea, Craig. There's nothing in the comprehensive plan that says or recommending that solar facilities not being in limited commercial, residential, commercial district or zone.
So there is, the limited residential is gonna be 500 feet.
Yes.
So why won't this be 500?
Well, it could be, I'm not saying it can't, I mean, that's a decision
I mean,
for
if
us
you're
yet
using
to
it for
make.
there, that's commercial, and if you're putting this in a residential, this is commercial. I mean, how can you change it? And make it 250?
There's nothing hard and fast in the comprehensive plan that says specific to commercial, to solar farms or any other types of commercial enterprise in that particular zone that says it can't be there. Other than it recommends that industrial uses not be there. And so, I mean, we have that option. We can say that we don't want them, depending on the size that we're talking about, maybe might be a factor, but
Right.
we could say that we don't want them in the limited residential commercial zone of the comprehensive plan. Or we have some other setback from, I mean, we clearly don't want them right on top of public roads. We want to deal with the visual impact on passersby on those public roads, so it doesn't look like Farmington. It's just a question of how we do it. You know, do we have a 250 foot or whatever, 300 foot, whatever it might happen to be, and a lot of planting and stuff? Do we just, or do we say you can't have it for within 500 feet of a public road?
I think the good news is we have the opportunity to shape it how it fit. Right now, this is probably the best time to do it, right? So that's a good thing. And this was just one example, I think.
Okay, so I still have a question. I'm still not 100% up. So in this limited residential commercial, somebody could still do a commercial, not with solar farms. I'm not talking solar farms. I wanna make it an equal plan,
Right.
equal field. So in the like a residential commercial area, or even a residential, right? You can still put a commercial business in a resident, I mean. So if somebody on Route 8 wanted, not in the village district, wanted to put a business that was a separate building, they're still able to do that by the road, correct?
Yes.
All right, so they wouldn't have to be 500 feet.
No. Right.
And I think, Craig, part of what we have to remember is the plan is just that, it doesn't carry the weight of the ordinance. It's sort of a guideline.
Well,
And
George has mentioned before that by Maine state law, you have to follow the comprehensive plan. He's used that as an argument before. So
Yeah.
is the comprehensive plan just a plan? Or is it required by state law?
So, Craig, let me, I probably haven't been as clear as I needed to be in the past. The one ordinance by state law that has to be entirely consistent with the comprehensive plan is the subdivision ordinance. That's in statute. Other ordinances, the comprehensive plan is basically a statement of town policy approved by voters. And so it's been the intent of the town to try to incorporate as much of the comprehensive plan and its recommendations into the ordinances since I've been on the planning board. And but as Anthony said, they're recommendations. And so, we've made decisions like in the shoreline zoning to not fully follow those recommendations before. You may recall in shoreline zoning, we had decided not to require all perennial streams to be regulated 75 feet back, but to stick with the definition of stream that's in the model ordinance instead.
So it's just the subdivision ordinance, the subdivision ordinance.
Yeah.
And that, and again, but that, as Peter said, that doesn't mean that you can't adopt the 500-foot standard or something more or something less.
Right,
No, I'm just asking how.
No, I-
yeah, no, it's good to get that out there.
You know, as far as doing it on the size as far as footprint, as long as you're considering the panel size, then I'm fine with that.
Yeah, so some towns have this measure, and I believe they got it from the model ordinance that the Maine Audubon developed of area, sort of like an aerial view. And I can't, they're not clear whether it's just the solar panels or if it's the solar panels and all the other components of the facility. I mean, as you know, in any other commercial context, any other application comes here, everything, roads, all the structures, you know,
Should be all
everything is included. And so, and it may be because some towns aren't trying to squeeze this into what is essentially an ordinance like the commercial development review ordinance, which is essentially a site plan review ordinance. They're doing it in zoning, or they're doing it in some kind of standalone ordinance. It's a little different, but the only thing I took away from that is whatever we decide upon, we need to define it very carefully and very, very precisely. Because, you know, seeing what other communities have done, I think will just lead to all kinds of implementation problems.
And so along those lines, George, then with your suggestion about using terms that we already have defined in ordinance, then, or ordinance says, then we are at least one leg up on being consistent with definitions that we can use and that people from the town may be familiar with,
Yeah.
you know, also. So that's a step in the right direction in my book.
Yeah.
Um,
To get back to Rich's concern, and I guess some of Craig's and maybe others as well, about even smaller facilities not being close to the road. There's nothing to prevent us to do something like, you know, as I said, some towns kind of put conditions on their exemptions. And so we could have something that says no solar facility of any size, ground mounted solar facility of any size, because you don't want to prevent somebody, at least I wouldn't prevent somebody from putting solar panels on their garage that's 15 feet from the road.
Or even a couple out in their backyard. I mean, I'm not looking to,
right.
you know, on posts.
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
I'm not looking to regulate.
I
that
wasn't
either.
trying to prohibit that.
No, I know you
If
weren't.
somebody wants to build a small commercial thing and you include the road, you're encouraging them to put it next to the road, or otherwise this thing is got to be 50 by 100 is going to be 50 by 50 or 25 by 50. That's not even going to make it worthwhile.
Well, why would anybody want to put a small solar system up like that? I mean, it's gonna cost them more to do it than what they're gonna make off it unless they're looking for subsidies from the government.
Maybe, but why do we even have a dressing room that's 5,000 square feet? Is it worthwhile?
Right, we wouldn't be if we're going by this suggestion. Right.
No, we wouldn't, but
I mean, would you put in say there was no other square footage other than the 5,000 square feet of panels, would that be worth putting in?
Right now, no, but things can change. And, you know, I think I suggested some intermediate level, probably to address your concerns as well. What about these smaller things that could be, and you know, you could put in a buffer requirement for smaller ones, like you have for other commercial businesses. But no, I don't see a big boom in that kind of thing. You know, of the three categories that I had suggested, that middle one was the one that I thought, well, it's not really anything gonna happen like that right now. The small ones, yes, on houses, and small, home residential thing. And then the big ones, or bigger ones. I had one or two other just comments. One is that, the 500-foot zone in the comprehensive plan is called residential mixed use. And so it does allow commercial businesses within the 500-foot zone. And, I thought that, well, okay, if you push it back 250 feet, that's the first half of the zone near the road, and then beyond that is the mixed use, a part of the thing. That's how I thought about it. Another thing that George, you said about impervious surface, I really wouldn't want you to start calling the entire, solar array an impervious surface, because I don't think that's the way the DEP classifies solar.
It is, yeah. No, I disagree, Steve. It definitely would be considered impervious surface. I looked at their definition, and I think your suggestion that we incorporate elements of that, or, I mean, ours was originally based when we wrote this ordinance on that same definition, but they've expanded it.
Okay,
But yeah, very much so. The surface would be considered, the surface of the solar panel would be
Surface of the
considered
solar
just like a roof
Oh,
would.
all right.
I thought what you were getting at was what about if the panels aren't on top of each other all the way through?
Right.
You have like
That
10 feet between
Right.
the road and
Yeah,
that's
that
10 by whatever.
inner panels area, as some towns call it,
yeah,
would not be considered,
okay,
as long as it's vegetated
right.
and not compact gravel. So, impervious surface of your fictional facility would be the surface area of all the cumulative surface area of all the panels, the cumulative surface area of your road, the gravel road or whatever kind of road you're gonna have. It would, the transformer and its pad, that footprint, any other structures that you would have, that would all add, you'd add all that up, and that would give you your impervious surface area.
The reason why I was saying that in the stormwater management plan that was prepared by the TRC, the company I hired to do that kind of work for us. The impervious surface was all of those, the road, the paths, and this, that, but it didn't count the surface area of the modules themselves. It doesn't mean you couldn't do what you're saying. In
Yeah.
fact, maybe that's a good idea, because that, obviously, you can measure the size of the panels. And that eliminates some uncertainty about the size. The other thing about the size is, you're not gonna be able to squeeze a 2-acre project into, a 1-acre piece of land, no matter how you measure. It becomes like, yeah, okay, you could argue about where's the perimeter? Is it 5 feet out or is it 10 feet out? But it's not gonna make that. So the measurement thing, I think it's important to keep it in perspective as to how precise you need to be.
As I meant, just alluded to, Steve had made a suggestion in his that we take a look at the way DEP defines impervious surface area. In our ordinance, the terminology, we use impervious surface, they use impervious area.
Okay.
But the definition is like 75% the same, but there are some changes that have been made in the state definition that I think would merit us taking a look at.
Yeah.
As part of the process when we get the definitions.
The DEP definition referring to, is that part of the site law, part of rules pertaining specifically to solar panels and stuff like that?
The one I looked at is in rules, and I think it's in site law rules. I don't have it, I don't believe. Oh, I do have it. I have it. It's from chapter 500 DEP stormwater regulations, which, so, I mean, I can read it if you want, but yeah, they use the terminology impervious area. We use the terminology impervious surface. The thing I like about their definition, they give more guidance to applicants, they give more examples. Including, they include pervious pavement, pervious pavers, pervious concrete, under drained artificial turf fields, all are considered impervious.
Those are good examples because that's common in speak now with
Yeah,
applicants that come
right.
in. So,
and I think it speaks in part to the limited effectiveness of those things.
so I'd like to get back to, I think, the original question, which is, are we as a board going to entertain the idea of basically using size of the area as a criteria by which something would either fall into a bucket that we regulate or not, versus the previous example from KB Cog and others, they used another criteria. And that was the output and generation stuff. So I think, Craig, I think I heard you say that at this point, you'd entertain at least the notion of going to
Yes,
size.
as long as we're considering the panel size.
Yes.
So if it's
yeah.
4x8, it's 32 square feet. And so on and so on, as long as we're
Yeah.
including, and not just counting an 8-inch post going into the ground,
Right,
Right.
no, it would be definitely include the panel size.
then I would be good with.
Okay, but I too, I like this idea because of the consistency of the definitions that we already have in place and are ready, you know, so I do like that idea. Pete, I know you're catching up on this a bit. Previously, the quick recap was we're looking at defining two buckets, or using two buckets, if you will. What's in, what's out, based on output, maybe, like, you know, whatever you want to call it. Then we got kind of went around the axle on a couple of terms, and that took us a while. But rather than that, we're talking about using size of impervious area. That would be the trigger to say, are you in or you out?
Yeah, the latter is a lot easier for the public to understand too.
I agree, I agree. And, yep, I agree. So, Rich, what do you think about that idea?
I think size is the way to go.
So Sarah, you're online. What do you think about the idea about using size, like as George has presented as a talking point?
Yeah, area versus capacity, I will go by area. And to me, we more attached to the use of the land as well.
Okay. So I think we're in a good position, just for everybody's awareness. We've been in 35 minutes, and I think we've tackled and have general agreement that size of the area is how we want to go about this.
As the t-shirt says, size matters.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. So with size being the criteria, by knowing that having a criteria to say, oh, you're either in or you're out. I think, George, your example looked at 5,000 square foot is a minimum to say you're in,
Right,
right?
but as Rich accurately pointed out, it leaves open to, you know, ground mounted solar in close proximity to public roads and property lines and all kinds of other stuff. And I mean, Steve makes the suggestion of using 3,000 square feet of impervious surface as sort of the de minimis. But I don't know what your thoughts were, Rich. So, you know, you have a two-tier system so that for below 3,000, we don't regulate at all. Between 3,000, 5,000, we have some minimal requirements along the lines of what you're suggesting. It still has to be X number of feet from the public road,
Or
as long as
maybe
it's
it
ground
may
mounted.
Require some kind of, it's a, maybe a field requiring some kind of even minimal vegetative buffer. or whatever.
Sure. Those are good suggestions. I just want to kind of talk about this from a practical perspective too. I'm not sure how many instances we would see in that lower tier, 3,000 to 5,000 square foot in this example, Steve. And I am concerned, I want to make sure that we're looking at the CEO, right? who is the law enforcement for the town. I want to ask this from a practical perspective. Would agreeing to that two-tier thing put more burden on you? Potentially.
I don't see it's gonna be judicious. I don't see that there's gonna be 2,000 of these going up. And so therefore, I don't think this an overabundance of work for me.
Yeah, okay. It does, and I would agree. I don't expect large amounts of applications to flock in for that, lower tier, but we have a budget and you're in it. So we have to pay attention to it. That's what it comes down to. So,
And we're just regulating what's being sold to the grid. We're not regulating a residential. Somebody wants to pop some solar panels that's not being sold back, that they're just living off of.
that has been our
It's a
approach. so-
Commercial application.
Yeah.
So it's not a residential. So if somebody wanted to power their house and wanted to put in 2,500, 3,000 square feet or whatever.
Right, I mean, that's
If
been
it's
our,
not commercial, then
right, that's
Well,
Yeah.
and
it
that's why,
doesn't fall underneath that.
right, well,
Correct.
and that's why I said earlier, the exemptions are as important to the definition as the definition itself. Because I could easily see if some future board getting wound around the axle, as Peter said, about, does net metering mean that it's a commercial operation or a non-residential operation? Because you are still, and Steve, please step in here, the electricity is still going to the grid and you're getting compensation by means of a deduction from your power bill. And so, I would like to avoid that myself. And that's why the exemptions, which in large part came from Chelsea Ordinance, are, the way I crafted them. But because I agree with you, Craig, I don't want to be in the business of regulating those.
But I will add one thing though, is that I still think that the scenario you just described, Craig, should still require a building permit. I mean, if we're gonna require someone to get a permit for a small tool shed, it seems to me if someone's installing 3,000 square feet of solar panels, that probably needs
Yeah,
a building permit as well. So it's not something that would rise to the level of the planning board, but it is still something that someone should come in and apply to the code enforcement officer. for a
Yeah.
permit.
right.
yeah, I mean, because we're still just talking about this one ordinance, not
Right.
building permits in general.
That's a good point, though, because it talks to what's not coming before the planning board, but would still go to the town.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, as you guys know, I mean, in the ordinance, there are parts of the ordinance that speak to this is what the code enforcement officer is responsible for permitting, and this is what the planning board is responsible for permitting. So I would say whatever you guys decide you're going to regulate, anything less than that is something that the code enforcement officer should permit.
I like that. So, Rich,
Just make a point, the issue of the buffer that I bring up, it's the setback from the road. That's something I brought up because it seems like people who complain about the solar farms or whatever, that we can see them. That's why I brought it up. On a personal level, it doesn't bother me. I care less whether it was 1,500 square, 5,000 square foot things near the road or not. I'm not opposed to it, but I brought it up because that's what I hear.
Well, I mean, on that very point, one thing we could do is use the same buffer that requirement that we use for all other non-residential,
So that'd be a way to do it.
yeah. I mean,
and so certainly we have some good suggestions, and we haven't not worked out all the details, but at least we have consensus that size will be the determining factor for knowing what's in and what's out, right? So,
As long as it's kept at a minimal size, like 5,000 square feet or something.
Right, something like that. I think with Steve's suggestion was that first tier was 3,000 to 5,000, and the second tier was 5,000 and above, right?
Well, I had set up 3 tiers. One was 3,000 or less. And then there was 3,000 up to an acre size of the field. Mostly because you had brought up last time, well, what about the ones that aren't, going to be captured by the big, in the big, category? And I thought, yeah, well, you should have some requirements for all of these systems, anywhere from, getting a building permit for a residential standalone system, which shouldn't be a big deal. But then, then you have a long way till you get to what you are calling utility scale. And even if there aren't many systems like that installed now, there is the potential for them. Any single phase line that's running along all our roads can accept the system up to, I've been told, about like 150 kilowatts. So if the economics of the solar, if the price of solar drops low enough, you might get some of those systems being built in the future. And why should you have a big gap where there's very little? It's too big to be a residential system, but it's not big enough to be a utility scale
Yeah.
system. So that's why I put that middle thing in, not that I thought that it was going to be a big seller right now.
Steve brings up an interesting point, because it's a little different than how we regulate other non-residential. Are we, the way the ordinance is currently crafted, it doesn't, the smallest of businesses aren't regulated by it.
Right.
So, I was thinking in terms of that being consistent with that. And Steve's proposal is too, in large part, it just becomes a question of how do you craft the ordinance? Do you just have a de minimis threshold, and above that, you regulate, below that under this ordinance, and below that you don't? Or do you regulate everything above the de minimis and have some standards, sort of a permit by rule kind of standards?
Yeah.
For everything under that is, I guess, the question before us.
So
I think there's
on this, on your number 2, ground mounted solar energy systems greater than 3,000 square feet, but not more than 1 acre, not more than 5,000 square feet of impervious surface area. And then you have targeted 275,000 kilowatts. So prior, we were talking a half an acre size, land size wise. And now is approximately 100,000 kilowatts.
100 kilowatts.
100 kilowatts, yes.
Right, so,
And,
right, the half acre was for 100 kilowatts. I bumped this up to capture the possibility of single phase power lines being populated by 107, up to 175 kilowatt facilities. That's why I made it.
So with 5,000 square feet of impervious surface area, you could generate 175,000 kilowatt, 175 kilowatts.
Yeah,
So that 175 kilowatts is like the upper limit that single phase can carry, is that what you're saying?
that's right.
Okay,
Oh.
well, that's good to know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good
yeah,
bit of information. I didn't know that.
right. Beyond that, you need the 3-phase power. So that greatly limits where those larger facilities can be sited.
What's the average size of a panel?
It's like 3 by 6. Something like
Peter,
Yeah.
I have a suggestion for sort of a variant or a fusion of Steve's proposal and mine. And I just want to throw it out on the table and see what people can take their best
Sure.
shots at it. To deal with some of the issues that Rich has brought up and Steve's mentioned in his proposal. And what if we did have a two-tiered system? The first tier, again, still basing it on total cumulative impervious surface area. But the first tier would be similar to Steve's number 2 of 3,000 to 5,000 or 4,999 square feet of impervious surface area, and have some of the kinds of, it wouldn't require a permit under this ordinance, but it would have a requirement that they must meet certain standards similar to what Steve's laid out, like 150 feet setback from a public road. What we just discussed, requiring a vegetative buffer, not unlike other, not non-residential uses that we already regulate under the ordinance. And then the next tier would be 5,000 or greater impervious surface, and they have to go through the full permit process. And whatever standards we develop.
Well, just, so 5,000 square feet divided by 18 is 277 panels. Just, but you're gonna have a road, you're gonna have other stuff.
Right.
So it's still gonna be over 100 panels, 150 panels you're talking about,
Right.
not
But
regulated.
you're right. So if you assume for a moment that we're gonna have at least a 250-foot setback from the public road,
So that's
and you
half
have
of
it, like I gave in that, that's your 5,000 square feet right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a 10 by 250 road, 12 by 200, 10
I
by
was
250.
assuming 20 feet, but yeah,
I mean, you
but
just need a single lane,
but yeah, well,
Our plan called for a 16.
16.
I was thinking bigger vehicles,
Okay, no, I'm good.
whatever, but the point being, you're right. If that's all it was, it would be that big,
Right.
So,
but you gotta have the transformer on a pad.
Yeah,
16 times 250. Good, okay, 4,000.
I don't know,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, great, that's all.
Mhm.
How I-
No,
how
I'm
I
good-
try to
I'm
think
good with
about it.
that. Then that leaves you 1,000. Let's clear that up. 1,000. So 1,000 square feet divided by 18 is 55 panels.
Too big as far as you're concerned.
That's a lot of panels.
I have 24 at my house, and if I went all electric like I tried to, figure 2 electric vehicles, 3 heat pumps, a heat pump water heater, basically eliminating your direct combustion of fossil fuels and replacement with electricity, you would need 100 panels to do that.
With today's technology, based on what we know, right?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So what size of an area would you need to put 55 panels in?
Well, they're double them up height wise so that they're 12 feet of panel up, and that would be 2 per 3 feet, so it would be 55, that would be 20, 27, and they're 3 feet long, so that would be about 80 feet long and 10 feet wide, something like that. Now,
Thank you, Steve. Does that help, Craig? I mean, just kind of figure in some stuff. I mean, that's just one example, one way to do it. I did hear Sarah. Sarah, I see your hand. Go ahead.
I'm possibly missing the point, but why, if we're talking about area, why the number of panels come in play?
I think, I don't want to speak for Craig, but what I interpreted from his comments was that trying to understand, after you talk about impervious area by what has been suggested, which would include solar panels, driveways, transformers, and other impervious things, to get a handle on after you do that, in a smallish setting that may fall into this, what we're talking about, account for a driveway, which would start to chew up that amount of impervious space. What's left over? And in a case where you're trying to do a setback of 250 feet from a roadway, that only leaves you so many square feet. And then Craig was asking, how many panels could you put in that remainder? Did that make sense, Sarah?
Yeah, it does, but if an application comes for a 5,000 square feet or higher, or 6,000 or 7,000, how many panels they put there, I guess in my mind, it doesn't matter. It's just, we're just going by the area, isn't it? I guess I'm probably
Well,
missing
yeah.
some, I'm not seeing something here. I'm
So I
sorry,
want
Craig.
to decide on how much area that we need to regulate. That's the question on how many panels,
Yeah,
you know. 55 panels is still a lot to look at. So that's why I wanted to know how many panels was going in a small area like that, so I could decide on how I feel about what size to start regulating that.
Oh, I see.
Go ahead, Steve.
Craig, you're looking at-
I'm sorry, I just would have thought that if we are laying out the ground with some rules of the setback and all that kind of stuff, that the person putting in the solar farm will be in their court to figure out how many panels they need, all that kind of stuff. That's almost their problem. That's what I would
Yes.
thought.
Yes, you are correct. And I think Craig's question centered on trying to understand what that lower limit would be like and what does that look like?
Okay, thank you.
Rich, you're welcome. Rich, you had a comment, and then
Just,
Steve, and then we've got
Craig,
4 more
When
minutes.
you did the calculations, that was based on the 5,000?
No, I took out 16 by 250 for the road.
Yeah,
And then, so I left about, that was 4,000 square feet. So then I divided 1,000 square feet by 18 square
okay,
feet.
okay, but yeah, the base was the 5,000.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
but going through that, then it's starting to examine what constitutes impervious surface area and doing those calculations, and then the real talks could start and say, okay, applicant, if you wish to do this based on this suggestion, anyway, what would it take to have a model? All righty, Steve, you had a comment?
Yeah, just quickly, I think Sarah, I think the confusion is that the board seems to be moving towards using impervious area, defined as like the roads and the pads and the collectors and the modules themselves, rather than just the physical land area that's within the fence, let's say, of the project. And I think that's where that confusion is coming from.
I see, yeah. And we did talk about the term, was it inter-panel area?
yeah, some towns use, like Naples uses the term. They don't care how much road you have, they don't care how much, what you have for transformers or any of that. All their measure, their starting point is the total area consumed by the panels, cumulative area of panels and inner panel space.
And what's that limit?
2 acres. Pretty big.
Yeah, that's big.
They're at one end of the spectrum, Craig. Other towns are more in the area of like 1,500, well, 800 square feet, which is small.
That's the low end, right?
Yeah, that's the low end.
Uh,
Depending, I mean, with a lot of assumptions about how they actually measure
Yeah,
it, because it's not clear in their ordinances.
Reed Field needs 3,000. That's the thing.
And then I'm kind of leaning towards,
So you think we should maybe just start at 3,000?
well, I want the 200, I want at least a 250 foot setback, so that's kind of hard to start at 3,000.
You know, the suggestion that I think came up, the blended suggestion was to start at 5, but basically have standards that would be met for something, you know,
From
from, I'm sorry,
from 3 to 5.
3 to 5. Start at 3, I'm
With some
sorry,
conditions.
Yeah, right, similar, not unlike what Steve's already suggested.
right.
And I'd be happy to put something together like that for everybody to take a look at that for the next meeting, if that would help.
Idea of the concept.
I would like to see a 250 foot setback regardless.
Yep,
Mhm.
okay.
So I think it's a wonderful common ground to find between the two suggestions. Steve, thank you for yours. Really appreciate that. And George, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
and
very much.
Anthony, what's my deadline? Getting in the packet.
Noon tomorrow is fine, George.
Yeah, okay, good luck with that.
No, I mean, if you can get it to us this time next week,
Okay. We got a snowstorm, so.
you'll have plenty of time,
Yeah.
assuming you have power.
Right.
Right, well, I have a generator.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, Rich.
Just a comment, I'm not opposed to generators. Craig says you have the 250 foot setback, but I think we've got to keep in mind. that If you are back 250 feet and the road is even only 10 feet wide, there's not gonna be much left for them to do.
Mhm.
To stay under the 2,000. I mean, the 5,000 foot threshold.
Right.
But
It would be a unique situation to be able to meet both those.
yeah,
But that means just that. That doesn't mean that they can't do it. Just-
no, it's just gotta be personal.
It's just gonna be regulated.
Right.
So just for everybody to be aware, we've spent 1 hour on this topic. It's been a very productive hour, I think. But we do have other business to attend to. And so are we okay? I mean, it sounds like we've got some good agreement, at least on the size part and going forward. Are we good? Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Rich, thanks for your input on that. Okay, next up, we have new business. A commercial review opinion. Applicant is Michael Bragg. Hi, Mr. Bragg. So you're here, you want to get an opinion about the idea of at 75 Main Street, map 25 lot 67, to operate a coffee cart in the parking lot of the Lake Home Realty on summer weekends, no construction proposed.
So Peter, can I just briefly set the stage?
Sure.
So Mr. Bragg contacted me maybe a few weeks ago. Proposing what you just read, that he wanted to operate a coffee cart in the parking lot on the weekend of Lake Home Realty, which is at 75 Main Street. And so there have been some concerns in the village about some pop-up type events. And so I just wanted to make sure that everyone was on the same page as far as whether or not, first of all, what Mr. Bragg is proposing is allowed under our ordinances. And if so, if there's any sort of regulation of that at all. And so I suggested that he come to you guys to get an opinion. I invited the whole of the neighborhood to come here tonight. Some of the members of the village neighborhood are here, so that everyone's sort of on the same page as to how the planning board views this sort of activity.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much.
So does
Appreciate
the
it.
car have wheels on it?
Yeah.
Doesn't have a food truck?
Yeah.
So we don't regulate it.
I'm not so
We-
sure.
We may want to just chat. Yeah, continue. Go ahead. Rich?
My concern is whether we can approve it is the shoreline zoning ordinance. I assume you're within 250 feet of Mill Stream or Great Pond.
Yes.
No.
Actually, according to Google Earth, that goes right up to 20 feet of Route 27 from Mill Stream, 250 feet. That's not, the final word on it. It would need to
But
be
it
measured.
goes up. So if you're coming from Mill Stream, you're.
Yeah, the closest
diagonal.
part of Mill Stream through that property, 27, brings you within 20 feet of Route 27. Because I checked
From what direction?
from Mill Stream going towards Route 27.
Yeah,
There's a little indentation there.
yeah.
And
so
you
you're
bring
taking a
that
diagonal.
line up towards directly to, as a straight line to Route 27, 250 feet will bring you almost to Route 27.
The point I was trying to make, the would make is, if it is in the shoreline zone, we've already got commercial property. Can't have two commercial, well, depending on the size of the property, I assume it doesn't have 400 foot of frontage on the shoreline or 60,000 square feet. It's 40. But anyway, the point is, can you have two businesses in the shoreline zone
Right.
on that lot?
Yeah, so there are two issues, the way I see it, with respect to lot size, road frontage, and stream frontage. First of it is, it appears to be in the shoreline zone, so those dimensional standards.
Well, wait a second, George. If I'm
I
not
don't
mistaken,
believe-
it
I
does
don't
not
believe-
sit on, it does not sit on the shore.
It's next to Union Church.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No,
But
shoreline
the
zone.
shoreline zone is 250 feet from Mill Stream.
Understood, but
Right.
there's no shore frontage on that property.
Oh, there's none. Okay, I didn't know that, because we
you
didn't
cross the
work
Huron
provided with any
Road, that's
information.
what I was getting at.
Right.
You gotta come from Mill Stream, you gotta cross the Huron Road, you gotta go through 87 Main Street, and then it's the next property.
Wait a minute, maybe we're talking two different properties then.
So yeah, as.
I thought this was at the Realtors.
Lake Home, not Lake Point.
Yes.
Right, please don't confuse.
So
them.
where's Lake Home?
Lake Home is next to the Union Church.
Up that way.
It's way up,
Yeah.
it's way
Lake-
beyond
Lake
250
So it's
feet.
across School Street from the stream.
Oh,
It
okay.
used to be
I thought we were
skip- it used
talking
to be
about
skip
the-
town.
Lake
See, this is
Point.
what happens when we don't even get a site plan.
But the good thing is that this is opinion, right? We're
Yeah.
just talking opinion right now.
Yeah.
So we get to hash it out, which is good. So we're talking about Lake Home,
Right.
right?
Please, everybody know what.
Yep.
Lake Home is.
Right up by Union Church
Okay.
On
Right.
Main Street.
on Main
And
Street.
Craig, what you're talking about is if it's on wheels, I believe obviously it's respectful to have the village conversation, but it's actually a victor's license through the state is what it is. So the
Right,
state
and
is
we
the
don't
one that makes
regulate
not the
So
regulation.
if that's not a second business there, we don't regulate it, it's not a commercial entity to us. And
Well, so
Food
can
trucks.
somebody explain to me what Lake Home is, if it's not? a
Lake
business?
Home Realty,
Okay, so that's a business.
yeah,
And there's a second rental, well, you should say, it's multi-purpose.
So is this what used to be the Lazy Lab?
yeah,
Next to it.
Next to it.
so that's
It's
another
been a
property.
wine
you have in
shop,
between there.
it's been a furniture store, it's been.
Okay. So it sounds like what little information we have, it may not be in the shoreline zoning, but it still has to meet the minimum lot size ordinance.
Can I say something, which you guys are all talking about something completely different? But this is from personal experience. Okay, years ago, I used to do a lot with 4th of July. That's how I used to pay my taxes to the town and all the rest. All of a sudden, people were letting vendors come in. Okay, they weren't paying taxes to the town. They weren't doing any of that. And so for those years, until I figured out how to do something different, I had a hard time trying to pay my taxes. You know, are we going to let Belgrade Lakes, with the businesses that are in town trying to survive, are we going to let vendors come in on the weekend when that's the height of the business and people want to make the money in the summertime? We only have like 8 weeks now to really make an income. It used to be 6 months years ago, but now it's really 8 weeks. And for people that are licensed, paying taxes to the town, that have been here for years and years, is it fair to let people come in and actually have a business just on the weekends? And do we want Belgrade Lake to have nothing but food carts? And where is everybody gonna park?
I saying something?
Yeah, you may.
Yeah, well, I can speak to a couple of things, like if I give my thought process behind my business, this coffee is something I wanted to do for a long time. I may not live in Belgrade, but I've lived in this area my whole life. I know people in Belgrade who do business. I sell things at Wicked Elderberry. So I'm already partially involved in the community, and I only can do weekends because I have a full-time job. So this is my way of starting in a direction of starting a business I've always wanted to do in a community that I like, with the intent of, if things go well, setting up a permanent location. But just given my limitations, I don't have enough money to just dive right into something. So that's how I'm approaching this. I understand your concern. My intent isn't to start a food truck haven in Belgrade. It's just that's how I have to enter into the business.
Peter, can we
That,
take it?
that was just,
Yep.
you know, my concern, that's all.
And thank you for bringing that up. It is important to hear what you have to say, and thank you for your response. So George, yes.
Can we take a step back? I
Yes.
thought this is before us with the question of, do any town ordinances apply to this proposed use?
That is the
Let's
question.
get back to that.
Yeah,
It seems to me shoreline zoning is apparently out, based on what I've heard. I don't know, because I haven't checked on the map or anything, but but still on play are the minimum lot size ordinance and the commercial development review ordinance. Now, with respect to the minimum lot size ordinance, this raises the same issues that came up by the food trucks being at the Old Town office. Multiple commercial uses on a single lot. This would be, I take it, a second commercial use on this lot. It's the same issue that came up with the marina. It's the same issue that came up with the proposal to develop the boat storage building that we received legal advice on. As Rich said, when you added a second use, then you have to double the lot size and the road frontage under the minimum lot size.
This
ordinance.
isn't a building, this is on wheels, it's portable, and that's why we couldn't do anything with the food truck at the town office.
Actually, we could have if we wanted. It's use. Structures don't come into it.
We
It's
don't
a
have
second
anything
commercial use.
regulating, we don't have anything regulating any type of food truck.
Not food trucks per se, but we do commercial uses. And that's what and that's the point. That's the very specific point that our attorney made. So, you know, I know nothing about the size of that lot, but you need 60,000 square feet for the first commercial use, and you need a second 60,000 square feet for the second commercial use. You need, what is it, 200 feet, Rich, of road frontage for the first use, another 200 for the second use. And the fact that it's grandfathered is fine for the first use, but that doesn't come into play for the second use, which is not grandfathered. So there, we have that issue. And then under the commercial development review ordinance, if you look at the applicability section on page 3, you have the issue, criteria for when the ordinance applies, when you change use of an existing non-residential use in whole or in part to another non-residential use. I don't know if that comes into play or not. That may be something a little different, but it's something we should talk about.
Right. And so just for everybody's awareness, when you're talking about the minimum lot size, because I can't quote the minimum lot size ordinance very well, but on page 10, it talks about in paragraph D, commercial use, it talks about those exact things that the lawyer pointed out that you referenced. So that is what we're going by. So we're not making a decision whether or not it could happen. Just want you to know that if there are ordinances that apply, I'm pretty certain this one, that for sure it would. And I'm pretty certain the one that George just referenced about the commercial review development ordinance would too. So if everything were met, I think that could be a possibility. But I think the answer is there are 2 ordinances that we can point to that apply in an application like this.
Despite its de minimis
Right.
sort of size.
Yeah.
So basically, we can't have any food trucks in the village.
Can if there's adequate lot size, and adequate road frontage.
Well, we've been having them for years, so now you're saying we can't?
Well, I wasn't on the board then. I don't know what the thought process was when those were
I don't either. Rich?
considered.
Just go
I
ahead.
wasn't at the meeting that George mentioned when he was talking about the trucks up to the old town office, so I don't really know what came out of that for sure. But the question I have, and I guess I want to be consistent as we go through this. Are the food trucks up at the town office, if they're coming back next year, do they have to come to us for a permit? The Greek, whatever, that's been down at Tony's wife, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
Tennis.
anyway.
Yeah.
I guess I want to make sure that we're consistent in whatever we're doing. And I don't know
Right.
what the decision was back when you were talking about them up there.
Like
They're gonna need
the
a
food
permit?
trucks?
Yeah, they're gonna need a permit when they come back.
Well, I'm not sure we made a decision.
We never did.
But
On
the
these guys.
context of that was Gary Fuller came to us, the code enforcement officer at the time, and said that Anthony and the select board wanted our thoughts on whether any ordinances applied to the food trucks at the town office. And I and at least somebody else said that it may not, depending on the lot size of that lot, and the amount of road frontage, it may not meet the minimum lot size ordinance. There was a debate about whether or not the food trucks are considered structures. Craig argued no, I argued yes, under the definition in the ordinance. But it was sort of an academic exercise because it's probably not 1,200 square feet of structures, new structures. So it really came down to whether they had adequate lot size. And our advice was, or my advice was that if the town wants to do something about the food trucks, it can. It's just, do you want to?
And it was my understanding, Gary was telling us that we didn't regulate it. We have no regulation.
Yeah, there is no ordinance about food trucks precisely, but that doesn't mean they don't fall under other ordinances. They're not exempt from all town ordinances.
You have something to say?
Yeah, so I own the Elderberry in the village, and Mike has been a vendor of mine for a while. I think that's a good thing that you bring up to discuss, because I think at this point, if we're gonna say we're not gonna even consider a coffee cart, which is much smaller, then when you're talking about a small village, you can't say you can have a food truck, but you can't, unless we're gonna keep it all under the same thing. So I understand where you're coming from. I am a year-round business in the village. the Greek food truck has been in their driveway for 4 years with the understanding that they were going to purchase property in the village to turn into a year-round restaurant. So it's a similar business mindset that they were, it was a stepping stone for them to get to the village, which I think is what Michael is speaking about. The property we're talking about is owned by Liz, correct? And you can correct me if I'm wrong. It's already a multi-purpose use building. It has a gift shop in it. And part of the draw, if I'm right, Michael, is that when the gift shop is done in there, she is going to vacate, and then the opportunity for Michael to move into that space is there. So the food cart is much smaller, in my opinion, than a food cart. And if you call the state, yes, there are town ordinances, but it's actually a victualler's license. So there is no, like, it's kind of an all or none, if you will, with the town of Belgrade. You can't say you can have a Greek food cart and then you can't have a coffee cart. You can't, that's not how that works. And I think that probably anywhere would, you know, so I think if we're gonna have that conversation, we have to say, unfortunately, we'll look at it, but the property size that he's referring to is much larger than any property that's had a food truck on it in the past.
With parking.
With parking, because parking in the village, as we know in the summer, is always on the side of the road anyway.
Rich, Thank
This
you.
may not mean anything or in terms of whether or not it's commercial. Can you describe what you propose? Or we've never really, I've heard coffee cart. I have no idea what that entails.
Whether you can have picnic tables,
I
where
don't
people are
know.
gonna park, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I haven't built it yet because I'm still, going through the whole process, but it'll be one probably 6 foot wide cart, maybe another similar width, but shorter, just depending how I can fit all my equipment into it, but it will have, it's self-contained, so it's gonna have my own water supply, my own wastewater, and it's going to have a coffee brewer, espresso machine, and a fridge, essentially, and I'll make brew coffee, espresso-based beverages, and iced coffee. So very small footprint, maybe if I do just one cart, it's 18 square feet probably. If I do 2, maybe 30 square feet of actual structure.
And you're not using the well water.
Not using nothing, it's totally self-contained. Other than I can either, power it with a generator or just the extension cords. You had a question for parking too? I don't think so.
Well, I was just curious, because parking is always that issue in the village.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a parking lot in the back. of the building.
And in the
okay.
that home park can park there, probably,
On the weekend, it's empty, so you could park 7,
yeah, I would say.
10 or more. 10.
See, I'm still
Probably
confused
8,
about the
yeah.
location of this, because when I went to Google Earth and put in 74 Main Street, that's definitely in the shoreline zone.
No, it's not.
No.
So
Okay, I'm taking it at your word. I'm just saying, 74 Main Street on
Do you know
Google
where
Earth comes
Pete's
up.
Pig was?
What's that?
Pete's Pig,
Yeah,
the next building south.
south,
yeah, towards the fire station.
okay.
Greg, was Pete's Pig, was that located in what Brian Bernacci had as the Golden Pond years
Yeah.
ago?
Yes.
Okay, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
And so this is just south of that?
Yeah. It's well beyond 250 feet.
Okay, if you say so, Kurt.
So from the chat, we have a question just for everybody's awareness. If a property is permitted as multi-use, how many businesses can be operated simultaneously?
Like-
And it says, if it's a 2-story building with 2 existing uses, businesses currently, can you then also add a sidewalk space as a usable business space? So those are the questions on the table. So I'm not sure if we're prepared to answer all those, but that just came through a chat, so I just want people to
And that
know.
was through Melanie Jewel.
Yep, from Melanie.
Could you repeat the question?
Certainly. If a property is permitted as multi-use, how many businesses can be operated simultaneously? If it is a 2-story building with 2 existing uses, businesses currently, can you then also add the sidewalk space as a usable business space? So can you add, yeah. there's a lot there, but
Did I hear early on that one of the businesses is gonna move out? At some point?
are we talking about theoretically, like, I think what this question is, or are we talking specifically about this case?
Well, it's about this case and whether or not, if there are two businesses in and out,
Oh,
could the other business vacate
well,
and the new business come in as a grandfather commercial use or whatever?
well, let's ask that question. I think it's a fair question. Does anybody know, is the other business going out?
Yeah,
Oh.
so I think the plan would be if the gift shop, once the gift shop phases out, I think her plan is to run it one more year. Then then Michael would have his clientele built up that he could. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're planning for like an overlap, so,
Well, yeah, it takes a while for people to
yeah.
recognize the business.
Sarah, was that you? No, okay.
Can I just say something? This is, can you all hear me? This is Kate from the Village Inn.
Yes, we can hear you, Kate. Hi.
Hi, how are you guys? Thanks so much, Anthony, for sending out the notification. I so appreciate it. I think in principle, it's a wonderful idea, but as everyone is saying, you know, each kind of case, depending on the, you know, what's allowed with the property is different. So the parking is kind of the concern, excuse me, on, you know, our end overall. It's so, you know, crammed and crowded, and it kind of depends on, you know, if it's, you know, in principle, like a little cart where people are strolling through town, you know, per se, and getting a cup of coffee might be one thing. Whereas if, you know, the business has multiple uses, you know, in Liz's case, maybe the default is, you know, the minimum lot size ordinance, or I don't know. I just think it's a more complicated issue when it comes down to like ultimately how that's going to grow, and then what precedent that business might set for other businesses to use as an example, to kind of do, you know, develop their own ideas. You know, ideally it's great if it's, you know, one thing, and then if people are sort of leapfrogging on something that you know, worked for one property versus another with different set of circumstances with parking. That's where it gets kind of tricky, and that's always been our issue is the parking. Really, in Belgrade Lakes, it's you know, terrible at best, you know, in the summer, and that's kind of the thing. And that's not to say that this isn't a good idea at all. I don't mean it that way. You know, it could be fine, but it's just, those are the considerations that I think we just need to take into account when we're looking at everything.
Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that.
There's ample parking in that building.
We have a
There's
parking lot.
It's mostly a parking lot,
Okay.
just to get that one off the table. I don't feel like there's so much parking there.
Thanks. And of course, we're not making a decision tonight, right? This is just talking about what's in play, what's not. Right, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right, and so you wanted to get an opinion, and I think we've had several. But from us, I think it might be fair to say, and correct me, board, if I'm not going down the right track here, that we think that there are at least two sections of two ordinances that would apply. Okay, and so for everybody that's in attendance for this, I just want to make sure that you know that we're trying to do this according to the ordinances that we have in play. We have a Herculean effort to adjust ordinances over time on the fly, in the middle of doing other permit reviews too. So we have an open seat, so come on board. That's my plug. So that's what we have in front of us. So if you'd like to pursue it, I would say work with the code enforcement officer, do some talking, do some planning, think about some things, and at least we can point to two different things that we know of right away that we think apply. Does that help you?
Yeah, I mean, it gives me an action too, so, I mean, I just have to work with them to see if it's possible, I guess.
I would advise that strongly.
Peter, since
Yeah.
there's a fair number of members of the public here and who generally don't attend our meetings for with a few exceptions.
Right.
I think it should be repeated, it's worth repeating, that we don't make up the rules as we go. Our job is to equitably implement the ordinances as the voters approve it.
Right.
Not to make up rules for this person different than that person, because we like that person, don't like that person, or whatever this person, sister broke up with me when I was in high school. And so we have equity and implementing the ordinances across the board the same. It's the only way you can achieve equity.
And I do want to say too, over time, we're not perfect. We're going to have made mistakes, right? So, but we're trying. We're always trying. So that's a key thing to keep in mind.
Well, that's an important point too,
Right.
because we know mistakes have been made by
Yes.
previous planning boards down in the village, but we are committed not to perpetuating those mistakes.
So I hope that helps. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
One thing,
Yep.
Michael, I'll be reviewing these two ordinances.
Yeah.
And see where we go from there, so we just want to maintain contact with me.
Yeah, thank you for my email. Cool.
Thanks so much, everyone. Appreciate
Yep.
it.
Thanks, Kate.
What's that?
And our ordinances are online too, if you would like to see them. I know you.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, thanks. Thanks. So next, we'll give it a second. Thank you, thanks. As people go, but. Yep. Okay, great. I'll be right back. That's good, right? It's good. All right. So Ryan, you're here with Kyle Hockmeyer?
Yes.
Right, to talk about a commercial application.
Yes.
George will be right back. We're not gonna go too far with that.
Yep.
But looks like what you want to do is over on the Dunn Road,
Correct.
map 6, lot 17, 8? A, okay. A, all right.
If memory serves.
Okay. You
typed it out.
you propose to utilize the existing 36 by 48 structure as a wholesale medical or medicinal, I'm sorry, medicinal marijuana.
It's not existing.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Oh, it's
build it.
not, okay.
So what happened is actually I jumped the gun in the fall. I didn't realize, Kyle, his business partner, Kyle's business partner Cole works for me, and as a favor, I was helping out with the permit process. He owns the property. So I went and, did all the permitting process for the building. And then lo and behold, there's more involved because of the commercial use of it. So I did get a permit from Gary, which we have not used yet, so we've let the permits not good anymore. So that did bring up questions. We haven't used it. Can we apply that? Total to if we have to get a new permit?
I already applied for it.
Yeah.
You did? So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Don't worry
Okay.
about it.
It is 17.8.
Can I write it off to a donation to the town?
Sure. And so Rich has a
Clarify,
question.
There's a house on the property that
Correct.
somebody lives in,
Yep.
and you're gonna build another building
Yeah.
Yes.
separate. Okay, all right. I had the impression that the house was gonna be converted.
No, I don't think he'd appreciate that.
Okay, so the house on this lot,
Yep.
and you'd like to build an additional building.
Yes.
And in that building have the commercial business that we're talking about, which is the medicinal marijuana grow facility.
Where's the Dunn Road? I think.
It is, it's near the transfer station, this property.
Okay, so Okay, that's the done road there, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
precisely.
far down?
Off the west.
It's right past the transfer station, that's
Oh, on the right or left?
on the left.
That's all commercial, that's all residential there, right? Okay.
So George, we didn't get very far. We just established what they intend to do.
And I know where the down road is.
Yes, you happen to be familiar with it, right? You go by that road frequently. And they have, this says there's an existing structure. That is not accurate. There is a house on the property,
Yes.
but what they intend to do is build what's stated on this agenda as a 36 by 48 structure.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a residential house plus another building for, that's the commercial thing.
Yeah, correct.
On your,
Is what you said, 17 acres, is that what you said? How much land?
He has about 3 acres, I thought it was, yeah. Well, 2.1 acres.
okay. So let's start off this, and I'd like to involve you as much as possible in this, okay? So did you get a chance to review the application with the applicants?
I did not, yeah.
Did not, okay. So we're here tonight to look at completeness. Is that what you're hoping to accomplish?
I think Anthony put this on the agenda.
Okay,
I'm not sure exactly what he's looking for.
Yeah, it's just it's the first meeting we've had with you guys. So,
okay, an initial
Yeah.
meeting, okay.
yeah.
So I want to make sure we're kind of starting off on the right foot.
It sounds like you're asking, is this possible? Is this something that they can do? In respect to probably commercial ordinance, as well as block size, I'm guessing.
Sounds right.
That's what I'm gathering out of it.
Yeah. Because it seems like it would be applicable under section 1A. The construction or placement of any new building or structure for a non-residential use, this would be that. Including accessory buildings and structures, which that would be that. Because someone else lives in the other building, correct?
The owner, yeah.
The owners, in excess of 1,200 square feet. And was it 36 by 48?
Yeah.
I know it's over
It's
1,200.
over 1200, Yeah.
My old school math did okay. All right. So I'm thinking it's applicable, at least this part. Does anybody else see anything differently so far? Okay,
No.
so that part is in. So we're in. All right. Where else?
And there was a second part to that question in terms of other ordinances, like minimum lot size, is that?
Oh, I think that was the theory. That was there anything else that like does minimum, does this particular lot, which is 2.1 acres, did I hear that right?
2.1, yep.
And there's a residence on it now, right?
Correct.
So,
Is there
And
any,
all the impervious calculations are well under.
Yeah,
It has to
no.
do that, you know that.
yeah,
so no other ordinance applies that we know of at this point, right? With
right,
minimum,
right.
yeah.
And how much road frontage is there?
You've got 220 feet of road frontage.
And what's required, the road frontage? That's 200 feet.
I'm sorry,
What's the requirement? for road
I
frontage?
was just looking it up.
Yeah, I want to look up too, Craig, because I was, yeah. Stand by, we'll get it.
No, we're not going anywhere.
Okay, we know you've got other stuff to do than hang out with us, so.
Sure, it's a snowstorm.
I know. You got gas for your generator?
Worse.
I know. If someone finds it before I do, just tell me what page you're on.
Is it on, well, it would be page 8 for residential and then
Oh, okay,
of the minimum lot size ordinance and then page 10 of for the commercial. Do you have that right?
Page 10 on commercial.
Oh, wait a minute.
Bottom of page 7,
On commercial,
or not commercial, but
Oh.
there's,
minimum lot size?
yeah, been multiple land uses.
Yeah, I think so.
Says a lot on which a single family residential dwelling exists and which is a conforming commercial lot may be granted a permit for one concurrent commercial use.
Providing all other requirements of this ordinance for commercial use can be met. So that's under the multiple land uses at part of the minimum lot size ordinance. I think that's true.
And the question is, what are the standards for a commercial lot?
Okay. So it is multiple,
60,000 square feet.
Yes. Right, I think it's 40.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, we got over 60,000, yeah.
Or 200 foot of road.
So what's the road frontage, 200 feet?
Pardon me?
Did you find the road frontage?
It says it has to have at least 200 feet of road.
yeah, and that's on page 10 in the minimum lot size ordinance.
On the minimum lot.
Yeah. And we're there because of the multiple use part. in some areas.
So, Rich, it wouldn't be then 200 feet for the residential use and 200 feet
I
for the
don't
commercial
think
use?
so, because of the, did you look at the page 7?
I did.
Um,
In 5?
The
Paragraph B is the one that,
they talk explicitly about one concurrent commercial use, providing all other requirements of this ordinance.
Oh, okay. I misread that the first time.
So if that's the
Yeah.
case, one granting, providing it meets everything else,
Yeah. So
Then-
it just has to meet the residential,
right? And so then we go to residential part, oh wait,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
200 feet and 40,000 square feet.
and it, by the way, George, it's got to meet the
Commercial,
requirements of the commercial versus residential.
Oh, okay.
which would be,
So 60,000 square feet, 200
And
feet.
they've got
yeah, and they've
they
got
have
that, and they've got the 200 feet.
Okay.
Right. So from that perspective, I think minimum lot size part is satisfied. Right?
I agree.
Okay,
Thanks, Rich.
okay. What is next? How about on the commercial development review ordinance part?
I definitely agree with you here that that ordinance applies for
Yeah.
the reasons you gave.
Yes, okay, great. Okay. All right, so if that's the case, does the board wish to proceed just like to look at completeness? Is that where we are with this one right now? I mean, I think,
so.
yeah, okay.
You filled out the application, you filled all of it out.
All right, and Ryan's heard this before, and so probably, and you might have too. A lot of times when we've done this in the past, we'll go through the checklist, and if there's something that's missing, we star that and say, hey, this is what we need to get from you so we can go forward with it being complete. That's kind of what we do. Hoping that with our CEO's involvement, that can be something that can take place before it comes to the board. That's the goal. So where are we with the checklist? I'm sorry, hang on. Okay. So Craig, I went to page 33 to start the checklist. I don't know if you guys have that. You guys all have that? Yeah. Okay. So if it's okay, we'll just kind of go through this and see what we have. And what's not, we'll indicate and then let you know, right? Okay, so for this one, do we have an application form? The answer is we do. I just want to toss this out. Do we want to call it complete yet? My thinking is we don't want to call it complete yet until we go through it.
Yeah, I went through it kind of quickly and I noticed that there are a number of questions that have not been answered completely or have not been answered at all.
So if you don't mind, on my copy, I'm just going to say, we have it.
Yeah.
I don't want to indicate that it's complete quite yet. We'll get through it and
What kind of a fact finding mission for that?
correct. I don't know.
And if it would be any help, I can tell you the numbers of the ones.
Yes, yeah.
27.
Yeah.
30, which is missing the DEP contractor certification number.
I have that. I think Anthony has that.
Yeah.
I got certified. I was waiting for the
Oh,
comment.
excellent.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, during the first hour of our meeting?
Yeah.
Good for you.
No, actually, I got Corona over Thanksgiving, so I took the class.
Oh,
It was awesome. And then the Rudy job was my first job at Pat Muster, so,
Great.
37, 47 were the other two.
okay,
Okay.
we got homework.
Rich, sorry, George, thanks for bringing those up in advance. If the board would allow, we'll go through the rest of them. And then I don't have the numbers when I go through it, so I don't, if I get to 27, you say, hey, that was one we already told them, just slap me, okay? Thanks. All right, so number 2 was the applicant's agent authorization letter. We have that. It's not applicable, I'm sorry. That's what's indicated here. Copy of the deed option, sales agreement, lease, or other documentation of title right or interest. Yeah.
Peter, I would just note, just for your benefit, the lease is for 8 years. The ordinance requires 10.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
That's a good point. Okay, next up says a written waiver of request, and there was nothing indicated, so it sounds like no waivers being.
I think I did do some waivers and I emailed those to
Okay,
Anthony.
Further along, there's some things that are noted as waiver requested.
okay. So I would suggest that when we go forward, that as we do have waivers, we want to indicate that on that line. So that indeed there would be.
I think
So indicate waivers.
my application.
Yeah.
So,
At least on
did I
this,
email those waivers to you? I think I asked for some exemptions.
Oh, yes, you did.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't have to print it out. I can do it tomorrow.
Okay, that was.
so we have a letter requesting the waivers and their justification, is that,
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Email, yeah.
all right,
Yeah,
then,
Okay.
not now.
Not now.
Okay.
Yeah, just so we know we have it.
Right, and then we want to make sure it's part of the package, right?
Now, I got a quick question, because I'm
Sure.
using this type of purpose. That was certain questions you requested a waiver for.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah, it's that habit, right?
Copy of the tax map of the property, that's part of that. Copy of the Kennebec County soil map of the property. Copy of USGS topo map showing the property location. Copy of the Belgrade shoreline zoning map showing the property location. A copy of the flood insurance map. Copy of the National Wetlands Inventory map showing the property. Copy of the Maine Geological Survey significant sand and gravel aquifer map showing the property. Next page was a copy of the Maine Drinking Water Program map of public drinking water supplies showing the property location. Next, copy of the DOT highway entrance or access permit. It's indicated here is not applicable. Apparently, you folks feel that it's that way. I'm not sure. We all in agreement?
I am, yeah.
We all in agreement? I mean, it's a grow facility, not a
Sales, commercial.
right, not commercial. Yeah. Copy of DOT of a traffic movement and permit and traffic movement study, not applicable. Okay. Copies of other required state or local permits. So we have nothing there. In the end, it may be not applicable. I just want to make sure we don't miss it. And then the next one is the big plan, the site development plan. So we don't have that yet, right? It has not been quite developed. Is that correct?
We did do a map. to scale, well, it's almost scale.
Okay. And so the way it reads on here is that it's a 24 by 36 site development plan drawn to scale and show everything.
We did that. I'll look into that.
Yeah.
48 by 36.
Okay, maybe it's done.
I think it is.
That's-
But I'll double check.
Yeah, I mean,
And right there on the checklist, it lists the things that are required to be, and if they're there, if they're on the face of the earth.
right. Yep. Yeah. And yeah, just conceptually, just because Ryan, you've heard this before, just so you know, so the things that are listed here, there's, what we're trying to say is that if they are there on the location, show them on the map.
Yeah,
Okay.
or
We wanna-
part of your proposal.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Then I'm turning the page here. And that's more of the detail to scale drawing showing location of construction specifications of drainage features, roads, sidewalks, access points, driveways, parking, traffic control features, fire control structures, if there should be any, and public improvements. A lot of stuff. Next, documentation meets applicable state, federal air quality regulatory requirements. It's indicated here, not applicable. Soil erosion control plan. Soil erosion control plan. This is under
Peter, could I
Article
ask
Yeah.
a quick question?
Sure.
for My own education as much as anything. On these grow facilities, is there any state permitting required of the odor treatment and discharge, either through DEP or through whatever that state agency is?
No,
No, there
not
isn't,
state.
okay. Yeah, no, I was just curious about that.
What I'd say now.
Odor is something that we deal with in this ordinance, so, just so you know.
Yeah, so for the record, that's the Office of Marijuana Policy,
Yeah, that's it.
ONP. So soil erosion control plan. So there will be construction, right?
Yeah.
Going on to do that, so we'd want to know what's going on during that part.
I can
during
do that.
phases of that. It's under Article 6, Section 3. DEP certified contractor name.
That's me.
You missed a man. All right. Next, location of site structure listed on National Register of Historic Places. We know there are only a few of those, and it's not in that section of town.
The old landfill isn't one of them.
Not yet.
Not yet, right, not yet. Another millennium.
There's some cool history though, right down the road from you. We found out an old cedar sawmill down the road.
Okay.
Oh, where's that at?
Yeah, it's where Tyler had that property on the left.
Oh, Oh, Tyler Evans, yeah.
Yeah, what was that, it's just go down the lower part
Yeah,
after pheasant or
No,
white-tailed deer drive or something.
Oh. I doing some work with Walter Hamill down there, and he got a cedar swamp all through, the pockets in there.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Next, location of Maine Historic Preservation Commission archaeological sites. You see not applicable there. Information needed to meet air quality standard. Again, not applicable there. The information needs, have I gone to 27 yet, by the way? I don't even know. Number 20.
I'm sorry.
Have I gotten up to number 27? Probably not.
I wasn't even sure.
I wasn't either. Okay, no problem. Information needed to meet access to public street standards. Oh, and is that one you're gonna ask for a waiver?
Yeah, I think I did record that one.
Okay. Yeah. Okay,
Traffic.
so when, he said number 27, he's talking about.
oh, on
in
the application. Oh, gotcha.
So number
Okay.
27 would be how will development or proposed use controls emission dust ash, smoke, particulate matter, or other air pollutants.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, Craig.
I don't think that's that.
And so we've gone through this one. Protection measures for historic and archaeological resources. We're thinking that's not applicable. Estimated quantities of flammable, combustible, and hazardous substances to be stored, handled, or generated, including waste oil and antifreeze.
No.
No pesticide storage.
No. No, it's all indoor.
Evidence that meets DEP citing regulations for oil storage and hazardous substance facilities. And you've indicated not applicable because there would be no petroleum products stored. Next, copy of application provided by fire chief by planning board or CEO. Not applicable. That's it.
So we need to do that.
We do, yeah. And so I think it would be okay. Copy of application. Rich, would you be able to do that? Or I'm sorry, do you like Rich or
Richard.
Richard, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Richard.
that's why I'm getting confused.
As I just, I know,
That's why I didn't even look up at you.
and I know,
In this direction.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll have to move it.
Yeah, no,
I-
take care of that.
yeah, I apologize. And I realized that just as I said that, it's like, oh, that could be confusing.
It is.
All right. All right, thank you. Next, other information needed to meet material storage, including bulk storage of combustible and flammable materials and hazardous substances. You've indicated not applicable in this case. Visual impact assessment. Looks like you're going to be requesting a waiver on that.
Yeah, basically a garage. Is what it'll look like.
Next is a plan based on IF and W critical areas program recommendations to mitigate impact on natural areas and wildlife habitat, including deer wintering areas. And you said that's not applicable.
Peter, I was a little asleep at the wheel. The visual impact assessment under the ordinance is not applicable here. Because it's not on a hilltop or on a shoreline.
Okay, so a waiver would not be needed. Or, I'm sorry, a waiver request is not needed because it's not applicable.
We don't-
Next, other information needed to meet natural resource protection standard, Article 6, Section 6. You said not applicable. Next is the board requiring post-development noise monitoring or reporting plan. If not required, mark not applicable. For a grow facility, are we thinking a noise Thing
Oh,
is,
I can hear him going now.
Down the old double D, didn't even hear it going on.
I didn't hear it
No,
either.
no, no,
Imagine.
no, but last effect, well, that's the fact.
So I'd say not applicable. All right. Information needed to meet noise standards, Article 6, Section 7. Again, not applicable. Next, exterior lighting plan and specifications for lighting fixtures. Are you gonna have lights there?
I'm gonna have like,
I mean,
on the outside, it'll be like, ring security with a very low level. I think I did the, it's basic, very, it's almost not.
Yeah, it's stressed in the application.
300 lumens, I think they said it was.
all right,
Well, yeah, it's. really
Thanks.
not doing anything. It's security system, it's not big bright lights.
okay, thanks. Next, is board requiring a post-development light monitoring and reporting plan? If not required, we say NA. NA? Great.
What have we done before in the past?
For a grow facility of this nature?
Have we required that?
The only one we've approved is the one next door.
Right.
Did
I
we-
can't remember
Yeah,
what
and
we said
They
there.
also have some limited,
Yeah, so did we require anything?
no, we
Oh,
didn't.
okay.
Information to meet parking standards. You supplied that in here.
Yes, I mean, it's basically just me, so. I
Okay.
mean,
A written statement from the fire chief on capacity of fire department to provide adequate protection.
That
Well,
we don't have,
mhm.
I don't believe.
Right. Apparently, yeah,
So,
we don't have that in our,
no, not what we've received so far.
so that'd be one thing to do, right?
Was that
And then-
40? Where are we at?
So, oh. Yeah, I don't mean to confuse things because I'm going down the checklist. I'm not sure how that correlates to. any of
Page
the-
36 on the checklist. Back way down.
36.
So we're looking on page 36 in the
Oh, page
checklist.
96.
Yeah,
Look at the permit, sorry.
yeah.
That can be done with an email, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It has been
absolutely.
before, too.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's consistent. And then a written statement from the sheriff's department approving any proposed security measures.
I
Um,
think we may want to have, let's talk about that. Shouldn't we have something from the sheriff's department to know about it? So they may want to touch base with the sheriff's department.
We
Let them
didn't,
know what you got.
But
we
do,
didn't do it before.
We haven't.
No.
You want to, do you want to consider having it looked at? Security measures?
Well, that, go ahead, Rich.
I was thinking that was the issue of deciding. The applicant decide whether they're gonna do the security or what. But I think it's not a given as the applicant's required to have the sheriff look at, deal with security. So,
Yeah, the ordinance talks about, are you gonna rely on the sheriff's department for your security?
Yeah, that's how I.
And in the application, you said you weren't.
Oh, okay,
so if,
I'll put my own system in there.
okay. All right.
does that make sense, Pete?
Yeah, it does. I just want to, know how you do it.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Other information to meet public safety and emergency services standard, which is found in Article 6, Section 10. It's saying not applicable here in this checklist. Information to meet screening of structures, parking lots, and other non-residential uses standard, Article 6, Section 11. So do we have information here with us that talks what the applicant would do to meet the screening of structures?
There's something in the application, but it'll also need to be shown on the site plan.
Okay,
I think the application said 25.
Yeah,
Is that the tree screening or just the?
I'm not sure what you proposed so far actually meets the regulations in the ordinance. but-
42.
Again,
We'll give that. I think that was it.
okay.
Well, let me ask you this question before I come to that conclusion. I can't find a place where this is on the Gun Road, but in terms of specific lot, but is there a fair amount of natural woods between the public road and where construction site's gonna be, or?
Yes.
Okay, because what the standard in the ordinance is if that's the case, then you have to attain 35 feet depth of that uncut.
Okay.
If there's nothing there, then you have to plant I think it's a 25-foot vegetated buffer.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, and so to kind of put maybe a finer point on that one, so you supplied some information, right? So far, which is great. And then that the big site plan,
Yeah,
like show some stuff on that
yeah.
for this.
The
Right?
buffer zone stuff, perfect.
Does that make sense? I mean, I want to make that, because that's what George was talking about.
I think that is on file, yeah, just the way you know.
Okay,
And I can overlay that and do an erosion control over that, right?
I think so. I think, and with some supporting, a plan to see what you want to do. Next line is to scale profile, face on, view of proposed signs. And there'd be no signs. Nothing going on here. Nothing going.
Some businesses like to advertise, not others.
Other information to meet a sign standard, that again, is not applicable. A stormwater management plan, is that required in this case? Building
No.
basically a garage, right, says, will not meet that threshold.
It's not enough disturbed area and impervious surface.
Okay. Then, other information to meet stormwater management standard, Article 6, Section 13. On the application, it says a waiver requested. So I guess,
Was that the stormwater you said?
yes,
Yeah, that's actually not applicable.
Yeah.
and then I think, I know the answer to the next one, subsurface waste disposal site eval form, the HHE 200. That'd be also not applicable too, wouldn't it? A subsurface waste disposal site, well, I don't know, maybe
What
I'm
is subject? We're talking about the septic system? What? We're talking-
a subsurface waste disposal.
What kind of waste disposal would you need for the facility?
Took me forever to find it, but what the records in here, but under my understanding, its system is oversized by like a bedroom or not. It's a single floor ranch. We're gonna put one toilet in the existing building, and there's enough pitch to get into that system.
Okay, so I think that'll just need to be clarified in the application, because I didn't catch that.
Okay,
That was 47.
Was caught up.
Do you remember what number that was?
I don't,
36,
I'm on page 36
Okay, yeah, please.
on the checklist,
lower.
and it's the lower, like, it's
1,
1, 2, 3, 4.
4 up from the
Yeah,
bottom,
it's 4 from the
5 up
bottom.
from the bottom.
Soil. Substances. Oh, we're going down.
We're trying single-handedly to save the paper industry.
Yeah, no worries. I know the HHE 200's on file. I can pull that and write an addendum or something. How would I do it? Or
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And always work with Richard too, to make sure that whatever's.
What is the HHE 200? What's that?
that's isn't that usually the initial site plan?
Yeah.
Septic design and stuff and that. All that.
Yeah, the soil
Oh,
site
okay.
evaluator
Yeah,
and designer of the system
Yeah.
completes it.
and it sounds like in this case, the idea is to
Tie in the existing system.
tie into the existing with
Capacity
one,
is there, yeah.
toilet, right?
So you'd be draining that, the field is lower than.
Yes,
Correct.
The next line is other information to meet wastes standard, Article 6, Section 14. And you've indicated a waiver is requested.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Might not be applicable.
What is that? What would it cover?
Waste
is that for hazardous waste?
Wastes.
That's what-
Yeah, I think that's.
Oh, that is-
section or Article
actually-
6, 14.
Yeah, just-
Just paging to it, hang on,
Yeah.
almost there.
Solid waste is part of it. Sanitary liquid waste above deals with sanitary waste and so the application does deal with solid waste generation and disposal.
Okay,
If I recall correctly, you're anticipating having some waste soil.
Yeah, waste soil, I mean, that's really about it.
so I think it would be, well, I don't know.
Actually, I think it's complete,
That's because they indicate how they're gonna handle
Yeah.
the waste.
dealt with in the application, I believe.
Okay, all right, great. So I would just indicate that, Richard, for your sake, as you talk with the applicant over time on this one, that in this case, this one is probably complete and a waiver should not be requested. Next is groundwater quality and quantity impact assessment. Is there a need for groundwater quality and quantity impact for a grow facility that's in a garage? Not applicable. Next, copy of deed restrictions related to drinking water and groundwater protection. We have that, so that's complete.
Well, we do have a copy of the deed with, which shows the lack of any restrictions.
Okay, we have that. And the last things are about things that should not apply to many people, because it's all about, well, I'll go through them. I don't want to skip over too much, because there's a lot of mining stuff in there which is
Yeah.
not applicable to you.
Yeah, there shouldn't be anything from that point on.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
remember anything after that.
Yeah, public waters. Yeah, yeah, next, everything else, right, would not apply. Yep, okay, great. So we know that there are a couple of things, we want
Yep.
a little more information, and we know that from the numbered part of the application that George provided, all those four things there.
27, 30, 37, 47.
So a little bit more information on that, right?
Do we want to go over those real quick? I mean,
Let's,
Number 47, so describe solid waste to be generated includes types of waste. And it says growing soil. What are you looking for, the amount or?
Yeah, quantity was what I was
Quantity.
thinking was usually what we need
Okay,
there. And just make sure the transfer station can handle it.
yeah, I'll look at it, I can look at that.
Well, is that something you're gonna just bring into the transfer station? Most people just dump it.
Oh, yeah, I plowed it and said, good soil for flowers.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't even know if I could go into the transfer station, yeah.
Can't you sell that stuff? Make some money? You know,
or
Someone
trade,
would take it.
Find out.
Someone would take it.
yeah, some of those, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's a huge amount, so, but I'll see what I can find out.
And then number 37 was,
It has to do
will outdoor development construction activities be conducted between the hours of 9:30 PM and 7 AM? This is no. Are residential uses present on the abutting land parcels? That's unanswered. If yes, both what noise suppression measures will be implemented? So there won't be any noise,
No, that's cool.
so that's not applicable.
right.
I just couldn't tell from that.
And then number 30. As your DEP.
Yeah, perfect. Anthony has that on file, make sure you print a copy, put it in there.
And number 27, how will your development or proposed use control emissions of dust, ash, smoke, particulate matter, or other air pollutants? There won't be any. Everything's inside.
And that was just because it wasn't completed.
Yeah, perfect.
So it's an easy answer, right? I mean, just to have it on the application, that way we have it on file.
So put it on the application.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Our big goal is, you know, just so we have a kind of a quick idea. We can act on a complete application.
Yeah.
To have a complete application, we ask for like sometimes seemingly small stuff, but it's easy, but it's not nothing, right? So a blank is like,
I came experienced, so I told Kyle, we'll ask some questions, we'll go back, we'll have homework to do, so learn.
Well, that was pretty good.
yeah.
That was
We're
pretty
learning,
good
we're
shot.
learning, we're learning.
Yeah, it was-
What month was that about the?
20, I think it was
I think it was 27.
And you could just put
Okay.
their big run.
Okay,
And
yeah, right, yeah.
So it may sound like, oh, you know, do I have to write anything down? But it's okay to say there will be none.
Yeah.
That, an answer like that is an answer.
Yeah, all right.
Will we automatically be on the next meeting?
Craig, you give me, there's 27, give me the numbers of the other ones.
I got it.
You got
Yeah.
that, okay. All right, we'll do that one.
Will you be on the next meeting? I think the answer is yes, but let me turn to Richard, because if there are pending applications, we would need to know to answer your question.
Yeah, I am going over a couple with George next week, but I don't see why this won't be able to be on. As long as you folks get in touch with me and we get everything on this way, site plan evaluation, et cetera.
Yeah.
I don't see why I couldn't do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Just so you know, because I had asked, you may recall, I asked what my deadline was to get it on the information on the packet, so it would be like a week from today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, particularly with the site plan, that's
Your next
how problematic
And I
that
work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
I'm Ryan, by the way. Nice to meet you. I got a couple other projects going on in town.
is. Yeah. Just a few.
Great. All right.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, sure.
And, you know, I think you'll be in good hands. As you meet Richard and go through things, it's really important to be in close contact with him, you know. That's your conduit to making stuff gets done, so. All right,
Well, great, guys. Have a good evening.
great, you too.
All right, you too.
Give a card, huh? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a lot of us. Simple. Good
So that Rooney job is the sub did an awesome job. It's jacked up on cribbing, hanging by 3 beams. We got the whole thing tented in.
Really,
Yeah, and they're excavating it now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe next
All right,
time we
appreciate it,
see you,
guys.
if you have any pictures you can share. or
Yeah, it's pretty, yeah, you
Not
guys,
to print or anything, just, I'd love to see them,
Yeah.
just to see how things
yeah, they
go.
did a heck of a job. And by able to tent it, we were able to keep the frost is only about 6 or 8 inches in there, but outside it was just crazy. Yeah,
Yeah, it's been something.
yeah.
Holy,
Yeah, we're getting there. A long winter, huh?
yeah, I
Thank
know.
you, guys. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. Drive carefully, look out.
Perfect.
What building you talking about?
There was a permit, when we permitted the Rooney building, I have to go back and remember where it was,
Oh,
but yeah, because he was involved in an application, a couple of them.
Yeah.
I know he's one place there, you know, the old beach there. Right down there.
Yep, yeah,
Who's
they,
that guy, right? Who's the contractor, right, to the place on the lake?
yeah, so that was Cabin Master.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they did
Yep.
that. Yep,
Yeah, oh, yeah. That's all done, I guess, right?
it's done.
Yeah, that's a quick one.
Yep, done. All right, so the next, I'm sorry.
No, we just breathe while you guys work. Please carry on.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks, everybody. The next thing is I think is probably the next to last thing is the minutes from the last meeting, on the 22nd. Does everybody have that?
I
Pat?
think 2 minutes, a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see you in a minute.
I wasn't there anyway.
That's right. That's right.
Can't find yours, Craig.
It's in the way back.
Yeah.
It's in the way back machine.
It's within the.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, you're onto it. Okay. All right, so we've got Peter, George, Craig, and Rich. So we four are the ones that can bring on this. And at our last meeting, Sarah was
Sarah
in
was here,
attendance.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and you might have come in a couple minutes after we started. I don't recall exactly, but I want to make sure that you are listed on here to Sarah.
And on number 4, she says, she made a motion.
Yeah. Yep, very good. Has everybody had a chance to go through the minutes? All set. What edits? And if you don't mind, I'll go to ladies first. Sarah, do you have anything to recommend for edits on the minutes? And if you.
Yeah, just adding my name.
Okay, we'll add your name for sure. Yeah. All right, thank you very much. So we want to make sure that in the list of present, that we include Sarah. Sarah Langett. Anybody else have anything? Rich?
Just a clarification, I think. New business regarding Carol Lee, Richard Duncan. It says, well, it's a second sentence. Must be met by January 7th, 2023. Might be good to put conditions must be met by January 7th, 2003. And I'm not sure what it means and expires by January 7th, 2003. I don't know, the condition, trying to say the conditions expire. I'm not sure that's necessary unless the permit expires.
Permit expires, yeah.
But we gave the permit on January 20th. So,
That's the expiration date based on the original approval date.
oh, okay, all right. Yeah, okay. I'm okay then. Maybe just saying the permit expires.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So we have the
And-
words conditions at the beginning and permit before the word expires.
So the word conditions at the beginning and the word permit before expires in that
Yeah.
second sentence. Thanks, Rich.
So we have number 1 is new business, number 2 is old business, and number 3 is new business.
Cool.
That's to keep people guessing.
Yeah, keep them hopping. That's a good point. So perhaps number 2, would it be fair to say that number 3 should really be labeled as old business? Or,
1 and 2 are
no.
both old business.
No, one's new business.
Oh, no, 1 was new business.
Last week.
Yeah. Whatever Julie normally puts for our minutes, I'd say just have her put whatever she normally puts there.
I see. Because minutes review would be new business, correct? Is that what we're saying?
Maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So maybe the point would be to try to be as consistent as possible, right? Or however that would be. So Julie, if you'd be so kind, just help straighten this out.
Yeah. We can't figure it out, so please would you?
Help, help.
How about more new business?
Yeah, right, right. Anybody else have any other comments? George?
And under old business, fortunately, there's only one old business. B, the discussion and consideration of the subdivision ordinance and the last line on the first page. Well, that whole sentence reads, the board and town manager, Anthony Wilson, should be a comma there. Discuss the town's attorney's review. And I would add after that, and recommendations, period. And I would, the next sentence I would rewrite to read, Anthony recorded the changes made by the board. He already did it, it isn't in the future. And add a sentence. I'm not sure this is really necessary, but for people's consideration, the amended draft next goes to the select board.
Ooh, I like that. Ooh, yeah, I like
This is
that.
Julie. Can I say something?
Sure.
The new business, old business, new business, I copy exactly from the agenda. So I don't know if I should be changing that. I try to make it exactly match the agenda, and that's how it reads. I just double checked it.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Julie.
welcome.
Appreciate that.
I don't know.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm not sure this is, rocket science. I think there's a way of doing this, but unfortunately, I don't know what it is.
I know. And we don't want to put Julie in a
No,
unfair position.
No, not at all.
So, all righty. Does anybody else have any other things for the minutes?
No.
So we've have some things to edit here, and Julie, I hope you've heard those things, and thank you very much for the work that you do. We really appreciate it. At this point, I'd entertain a motion on the minutes.
I'll make a motion that the amended minutes be accepted.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve or accept the amended minutes.
A second.
And seconded, Mr. Sergeant. Thank you very much.
You can't. I'll second it.
Oh, that's right, you can't, you devil. That's right, George. Okay, George seconded, yeah.
I don't know.
Pulling your leg.
Maybe
What a
because
card.
I was there and Peter wasn't. I can make the motion, but I'm not real, I'm an alternate member tonight. Can I make a motion on that if somebody else?
So in this case, let's see, I think the answer is
Yes,
yes,
because Peter's,
was not.
yeah, right.
So I think the answer is yes. So we have a motion on the floor from Rich, seconded by George. Any more discussion? So ladies first, Sarah, are you in favor?
Yes,
Thank you. Craig,
Yes.
yes. George,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
and I too am in favor, so that would be 5 in favor, none opposed. All right. So that covers minutes. Richard, this is your opportunity to tell us what's new. What's new?
What's new?
Anything?
Well, study, but it's not new.
Yeah.
No, got a couple applications that George coming in to go with me next week. Just questions I had, but I figured if George didn't mind coming in, we can save a little bit of time here at the planning board. Like,
Yep.
I mean,
This all assumes I know the answers.
well, and it is, because I am so new, it may be something simple, and George sit down and say.
If they're showing us, I don't mind coming in too.
So what are the applications?
Pardon me?
What are they?
There are 2 building permits. One, the gentleman wants to take a roof that is like this and make an A-frame roof. And I think the other one is an enclosure of a porch.
Both shoreline,
Yes,
shoreline.
yes.
Sounds simple enough.
Well, and one of the problems is that one of the drawings he didn't show me any height, so I called him and got a height, and the height is 19 feet, and just with my construction background, what little I have, doesn't make sense that it's gonna work out to have a second floor with 19 feet total, so I wanted to bring it to George or Rich, whomever.
Yeah, so Rich, we're gonna be, one,
1 o'clock
1 o'clock
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned the business with the height, because we've run into problems in the past where somebody says they're gonna be 20 feet, but you look at, if they don't have a good site, the site drawing shows something different.
And he didn't have anything, and then when I did, his scale was 1/4 inch per foot, and when I did, he had 19 feet.
Hmm.
And that's really short when you already have about 10 feet, you know, to this, to
Hmm.
the second level.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, was your roof gonna do this? I mean, I don't know.
Right.
So I wanted, that's why I kind of wanted a second opinion.
Sure.
I just thought it was something that A, I could learn a little bit from, and B, once again, minimize the amount of time you spend here planning.
Yep.
You know, with each.
Yeah, really appreciate that. And I think it's fair to ask the applicant, you know, not to be burdensome about it, but just to say, you know, when we present this to the board, they're gonna want to have a complete application. Right? So for the applicant to please cross, you know, their Ts and dot their Is and all these things. So I think it's a good practice to try to have it completed as application as possible, including things like that.
Yeah.
Right? That's not being unfair.
No, and structurally, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, and then they stand a far better chance of being able to only have to come here once.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. You know, and you know, too, Craig knows about,
Yeah.
so Richard, you know, Craig knows a lot about construction. So, I mean, if a person is thinking they're gonna come in and try and pass something over, you know, it's not gonna happen,
No.
right? Because we have experience that's gonna be asking questions, even if we don't know the answer straight away, but.
But a question like that, I'm absolutely the wrong person, because I don't have that experience.
Okay.
But, you know, in terms of the actual on the ground feasibility of the roof angle,
Right.
but the issue of the height, for example, you know, that's been problematic on a number of applications over the last,
Right.
particularly the last year.
It can be 20 feet too. I mean, people have a tendency to kind of, height limits 20 feet, so I'm gonna say 19.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah, no, it's 20 feet.
Yeah.
It isn't 19 feet,
And
11 and a half inches.
Mhm.
sometimes the issue is it 20 feet or is it 16 feet based on the slope of the land and stuff like that?
Sure.
That's something we could talk about.
Right.
Yeah.
But other than that,
Okay.
fucking along.
Great.
I spent some time with Tyler Evans the other day, and that's good,
Excellent.
checking out what he's got going on.
So at the property.
Yeah, right across from the state, town garage right there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
so that was good. So
Good.
I'm getting there.
fantastic.
Slowly but surely.
Wonderful.
I told Richard we'd be out here by 8:30, but I got one more question.
Oh, okay, all right.
The
yes.
facility across the street, is that in business? We were driving by the other day and my wife, you know, the guy at the garage or something.
Down in the pit thing?
Right across
No,
the
the
street.
house where
Oh,
Harry
sorry.
Strickland used to live. I think
Yeah.
it was Harry.
Yeah,
Do you know if they are operating? Because she said, oh, there's a sign there, it says open.
I do not know.
I don't even think the driveway's plowed, is it?
Oh,
It is,
it's not.
it must have been just done, because it wasn't for a number of days
Wow.
after the storm.
Right.
Yeah, if the driveway's not plowed, I don't think we got to work with
I
that.
mean, Gary Fuller had approached them and maybe had discussions with them about filing a commercial development review ordinance
Yeah.
application. And then nothing never happened.
If he's not in business, then he's okay.
Right,
If he
yeah.
actually is in business, he needs to come see us. That
All
was
right.
it.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? One
I have a
lingering question for you, Pete.
But,
How, are you a pilot now?
no,
A drone pilot?
no,
No,
I
okay.
have to take the test yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When is the test?
Well, anytime I get ready to take it.
Oh, okay. All
I
right.
completed the course, yeah.
Good for you. Congratulations on completing the
I
course.
hopefully I can take the test this month.
This is the FAA license you need?
Yeah. these are drones, yeah.
My son just got it about 6 months ago,
Yeah.
so he could fly drones for the Coast Guard.
Oh, okay, he got his.
Yeah.
Oh, he took the test, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. The course I took was a preparation type of course in order to take the test. So I'm busy as hell, going to work.
Peter.
full-time.
Did we adjourn yet?
Not yet.
Oh, Sarah.
Sarah, you had a question?
Julie has a question.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Oh, hi, Julie.
I hate to ask you guys, but on the Hawkmeyer, what was missing again? I kind of missed that.
George.
Oh, Hockmeyer. So
Yeah.
what we had
Oh,
told
the
them,
numbers of the questions?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
27,
Where did I write that down?
27, 30, 37, 47.
That's good man.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, have a
Yes.
good night.
Yep.
Is it snowing out there in
Thanks.
Rome yet?
yeah, really. All right, anything else? No? Thanks, everybody. So I'd accept the motion to adjourn. Sarah, I know, really. Maybe not. Anybody else want a motion to adjourn?
I do offer a motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? No. All in favor? Sarah,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Rich, Pete?
Yes.
Yes, all in
I'm
favor.
not a voting member to adjourn.
All right, we're all adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
So who's your son's in the Coast Guard, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Sarah.
Make
They
some fire.
monitor oil spills and hazardous waste spills. They had a fish processing boat that had a lot of ammonia on it as well as petroleum catch on fire. And they didn't have a good way to monitor it safely.
Yeah, we will.
And so they kind of had to do it from afar, and this would allow them to do that kind of thing, as well as it's cheaper than flying a helicopter to monitor an oil spill out on Puget. He's stationed in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, okay.
So that's what he's using it for.
He's still in the Coast, he's in the Coast Guard. right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Peter, I didn't
Good luck with that,
recognize you coming in. You're walking along there and I'm thinking. This guy from the public doing walking up.
Oh,
Tables here.
How's the janitor get the trash?
The balls on that guy. He
I had no
just
idea it
lost
was you. So you sat down in your seat.
Hey,
That's Peter.
I got a question, and this is gonna be really stupid. This is even stupider than the fact that I had the wrong end of the stick of where that coffee cart was gonna go. The new gentleman that's at the front desk, what's his name?
Frank.
Frank, and what's his last name?
Marshall will be able to tell you, because she knows of it, or his wife or whatever. But I don't remember the last name.
I don't recall his last name either. We had a
I know
brief
it's Frank.
conversation 2 weeks ago. He used to work at LL Beans, and he knows my uncle who also worked at LL Beans.
Okay, well, I asked because he knows me, but I have no clue.
Yeah.
Well, you knew me too, because my family goes, what kind of business you in?
Yeah, no, that's what, and he said, well, you don't recognize me because I have my mask on, and so he took his mask off, didn't help. I thought I was a real idiot.
George, you should have faked it.
I did.
Okay.
Oh, it's good to see